Hello, my name is Dr. Raina León, and I am the co founder of Story Joy with Dr. Norma Thomas. I have the joy of being her daughter, and I was invited to film this video on my experience of going to Uniontown, my mom's hometown. So I grew up in Philadelphia on the outskirts of the city, or not so much at the outskirts, at the edge of the city, in the Southwest Philadelphia Penrose Plaza area. And very often, of course, we would go to my mom's hometown, Uniontown. So I have this lovely memory, and it encapsulates a lot for me. I must have been around 11 or 12 or something, and I was sitting on the front porch. My uncle and grandfather had just finished it uh, from the old kind of concrete or green, I remember. They had replaced it with this beautiful kind of redwood toned porch. And I'm sitting on the porch, cold day, chill day, and beside me was Brandy, my aunt's and then eventually my grandfather's dog. And she just sat beside me and we shared this quiet, chill moment looking at the mountains and the bare trees and that stillness. I haven't had many experiences of stillness. Um, and that was just this beautiful, beautiful moment there. Across the street from my grandfather's house was my great grandfather's house, no longer there. Some of the neighbors down the way was kind of a little uh, area, a separate house that my some neighbors lived in. And right next to the house was always few cars, broken down cars, camper, boat. I think there was a boat there too. My grandfather always had a whole bunch of stuff around as a former mechanic, or I suppose he never stopped being a mechanic. Um, and down near the house, there was also a line for like badminton. I think they might have played some volleyball there too, but badminton for sure, I remember. And these beautiful big trees. There was a crabapple tree there. Um, and the house that we grew up in, that I grew up in with my brother and my mother and father, we had a cherry blossom tree in the backyard. And that was so unusual among my friends to the point that I remember at my 16th birthday party, my friends coming over, and I had this basement party. And one of my friends looked out the window, um, of the back door, and said, "Oh my God, you have a tree in your backyard?" Because nobody had a tree in their backyard. If you had a yard, you had a postage stamp yard in the front yard or the backyard. And so we eventually went outside, and there was this our big tree. But trees, of course, were not foreign to my experience in having gone back and forth between Philadelphia and Uniontown with my parents. I have all these like lovely memories. Even in high school, I recall that I remember I was so busy. In high school, I was in every single possible activity you could do. And when I got stressed out, I just added another activity. And I remember I was so stressed out because I was in all these things. And I knew that we were going to Uniontown pretty soon. And I remember saying in the car, I can't wait till I go to Uniontown and stop all this stuff. And my mom said, you could just stop the stuff. We don't have to go to Uniontown for the break. Um, but that's what Uniontown was for me. For much of my growing up years was the quiet space, the respite, and I had all these lovely memories of being in my grandfather's house and the smell of the food and being in this space of two bedrooms, one bath, and thinking, how did my very boisterous family ever fit in this two bedroom, one bath house 6 kids in one room, and my grandfather and grandmother in the other. How? But they did, and they did it joyously. Um, there are also some things that I was very aware of as a child, and even more so as an adult. I remember bringing to Uniontown my boyfriend at the time, who's white, and asking my mom, okay, so, he wants to go out for a drink. Where can we go for a drink? Because we don't know. And as an adult, I never went out to any places. I just hung out with family all the time. And my parents were like, mm, well, nowhere. Um, Maybe you could go to the vets and feel comfortable there, but nowhere else. And that was a confirmation of what I knew to be, at least for many, the lived experience, the very separate lived experience of Black folks and white folks in that community of like, where do you go to have a drink? Where do you go to like be in a space where you can really just be social with one another and share time? Um, so we went to the vets and hung out with my great uncle, um, who was like the second in command of the vets at the time, and had a drink, right? But that was definitely a part of my experience of feeling like within family I am safe, but outside of that is uncertain to me, and feeling the threat, and maybe that was misplaced. Philadelphia, of course, had its own segregation and concerns depending on the neighborhood, um, and definitely violence or the threat of it around race, and gender and class and many other things. Um, but I think Philly, I felt it more um, in, and everything was up front and around violence or the threat of violence. Um, Folks were clear about them not liking you based off of race, and I think I also felt that, but it was more um, mm, implicit in my experience, only because I was cushioned by family. I wonder if it. I don't think that it was as implicit um, for those who grew up there. So, but in my family, there's always been love and joy and excitement and Thanksgiving dinners um, and the Mount Rose Church and the length of that service, although joyous, and allergies because I'm allergic to everything, and so there's a lot of natural wonder and the spray of pollen that comes from it. Um, and a lot of sarcasm and jokes um, and a lot of history uh, deep in the soil of my family who have been in Uniontown and Fayette County for hundreds of years. And how many can say that you have that understanding of your people and your lineage, um, that the folks who've come before are really really rooted in the earth, and in that space, from the cemetery all throughout. Um, so it's an honor to be in connection with that legacy, that lineage, that history, and to know, especially from doing my own genealogical research as well as an extension of my mother's, um, who my people be and how I'm a part of them. So yeah, that's a little bit of my thoughts about going back to Uniontown.